Observe your surroundings. You'll notice many people are weary, not from overexertion, but from investing too much concern in things that ultimately hold little significance. You are perpetually bearing the load of others' opinions, judgments, and feelings, believing that if you just care a bit more, you will be sufficient. However, the reality is that no degree of excessive concern will make you feel whole. It is akin to pouring water into a bucket with a leak. The more you pour, the more it drains away. Isn't it time we repaired the leak instead of endlessly pouring? Caring is one of humanity's most beautiful traits. It connects us, softens our hearts, and reminds us we are not alone in this vast world. Yet there is a hidden aspect to caring that often escapes our notice. When we start to care so intensely that it depletes our energy, clouds our judgment, and robs us of our peace. Caring from a place of inner balance is a gift, but when it is fueled by fear, insecurity, or a compulsive desire for acceptance, it becomes a silent burden. The very deed that once made us feel vibrant begins to leave us drained and hollow. You might have observed how frequently we strive to please everyone around us, continually adjusting ourselves to meet their expectations, hoping our concern will win their affection, gratitude, or endorsement. Yet regardless of your efforts, someone will always remain dissatisfied. That is human nature. Seeking universal approval is like running on a treadmill that never halts. You will keep moving, but you will not advance. If you fail to recognize this, you will lose your core identity in the futile attempt to satisfy endless demands. When you tether your inner peace to the moods or reactions of others, you are handing them the remote control to your life. Their anger will agitate you, their sorrow will unsettle you, and their disapproval will devastate you. This is not caring, this is self-abandonment. Authentic care stems from strength, not fragility. You can listen with compassion, extend your support, yet remain firmly anchored in your own tranquility. Otherwise, you are merely reacting to their turmoil instead of responding from your own clarity. Frequently, we harbor emotions that are not our own. We absorb the pain, guilt, and drama of others, mistakenly thinking it signifies kindness or nobility. But kindness does not mean submerging yourself in another's suffering. If you cannot hold space for others without losing yourself in the process, you only contribute more pain to the world. You cannot heal someone if you are shattered inside. You must first become a steady flame before you can illuminate another's path. There is profound wisdom in learning to release, not from a place of apathy, but from a place of comprehension. Letting go does not mean you cease to care. It means you discern what is yours to bear and what is not. You perform your part sincerely, but you do not cling to the outcome with anxiety. You step back, allow life to unfold, and trust that everyone has their own lessons to learn. Sometimes the most compassionate action you can take is to step aside and allow someone to discover their own strength. Your energy is sacred. Every moment of your life is a fragment of your limited time here. When you spend it on things and people who do not appreciate it, you are not being generous. You are being negligent. Learn to choose where your attention goes, because where attention goes, energy flows. And where energy flows, life expands. Do not waste your vitality trying to mend what does not wish to be fixed. Preserve that energy to nurture your inner peace, your joy, and your purpose. The world does not need you to care so much that you neglect yourself. It needs you awake, balanced, and whole. When you care from that inner space, it heals not only the other person, but also you. You do not have to cease caring. You just need to stop leaking energy. When you live this way, care becomes an offering, not a burden. It becomes light, not weight, and in that lightness, life begins to flow once more. You are not here to please everyone. The instant you attempt to be everything for everyone, you start to erode your true self. In the pursuit of approval, in the endless endeavor to be accepted and liked, you forget who you are and why you are here. Life is not meant to be performed for an audience. You were not born to shoulder the burden of everyone's expectations. No matter how perfectly you try to be, someone will always find a reason to criticize, to disapprove, or to judge. Even the moon, so silent and serene, is criticized for its dark spots. If the moon is not spared, why should you expect to be? The desire to please often originates from fear, a fear of rejection, a fear of inadequacy, a fear of being left behind. But when your actions are rooted in fear, they lose their elegance. Instead of flowing naturally, you begin to contort, diminish, and mold yourself into someone you are not. Over time, this becomes exhausting. It is like wearing a mask that grows heavier each day. And the most tragic part is that even after all the effort, approval remains temporary and conditional. Someone's smile today can turn into silence tomorrow, and if your peace is tied to that, you will forever be on unstable ground. There is a distinction between being kind and being a people pleaser. Kindness emanates from fullness, from a sense of inner abundance. Compulsively pleasing others, conversely, stems from emptiness, a quiet belief that your worth is linked to their approval. But the truth is, your worth is inherent. It is not something others grant you. It is something you acknowledge within yourself. If you spend your life waiting for others to affirm it, you will continually miss the essence of who you are. When you try to keep everyone happy, you invite imbalance into your life. You say yes when you mean no. You stay silent when you wish to speak, and you pretend when you should be genuine. Gradually, your inner voice grows faint, buried under layers of performance. You start to feel frustrated, misunderstood, and even resentful. And yet, because you have conditioned yourself to smile and nod, no one even realizes how much you are struggling internally. You have constructed a prison with invisible walls, and then forgotten how to walk free. To please everyone is to fight a battle you cannot win. People have their own perceptions, their own wounds, their own filters through which they view the world. Sometimes their disapproval reveals more about them than it does about you. But when you link your happiness to their reactions, you surrender your power. Freedom begins when you stop needing everyone to understand or agree with you. You are not here to be liked. You are here to live with integrity, authenticity, and peace. It is not your duty to carry the weight of everyone's emotions, opinions, or disappointments. It is your responsibility to live your truth with clarity and kindness. When you stop trying to please everyone, something remarkable occurs. You start to attract people who resonate with your authentic self, not the mask you once wore. You become lighter, clearer, and more vibrant. And that is the kind of presence that genuinely touches others, not through forced approval, but through sincere connection. So let the moon have its dark spots. Let people have their opinions. Let the noise continue outside. You simply return to your center. Learn to say no without guilt, to speak your truth without fear, and to be real without apology. When you do that, you may not please everyone, but you will find peace. And peace is worth more than any applause the world can give. Your peace is not something to be regulated by the moods and opinions of others. It is not a public project that requires universal agreement to function properly. Yet many people live as if their inner state must be validated by those around them. If someone smiles, you feel good. If someone frowns, your entire day is ruined. This is a perilous way to live because you become like a leaf in the wind, perpetually tossed about by the slightest breeze. Your peace is too precious to be so easily disturbed. It must be something you protect and cultivate from within. irrespective of who approves or disapproves of your choices. When you start to tether your emotional well-being to other people's reactions, you enter a ceaseless cycle of emotional instability. Someone doesn't reply to your message promptly, and suddenly your mind is restless. Someone forgets to thank you, and you feel taken for granted. Someone disagrees with you, and your entire confidence wavers. Living this way keeps you in a state of constant dependency, where your inner harmony is always vulnerable to the unpredictable waves of others' behavior. You must understand that people's emotions are complex. Frequently, their reactions are shaped by factors that have nothing to do with you, their past experiences, their current stress, or simply a bad day. But if you take everything personally, you begin to carry their baggage on your back. You start to interpret their silence as rejection, their distance as dislike, and their anger as your fault. This habit not only drains your energy but also creates unnecessary inner conflict. You become anxious, reactive, and overly sensitive to concerns that were never truly yours to bear. Key is to realize that you are not responsible for how others feel about you. You are only responsible for the clarity and intention behind your actions. If you speak with kindness, act with honesty, and live with integrity, then you have done your part. What others choose to perceive or feel is beyond your control. If they misunderstand you, it does not make you wrong. If they are unhappy, it does not mean you must sacrifice your joy. Peace begins when you stop allowing yourself worth to be a reflection in someone else's mirror. There is immense freedom in no longer feeling the need to manage everyone's emotional responses. You start focusing on your own state of mind, your own alignment, your own truth. This does not mean you become cold or indifferent. In fact, it is the opposite. You become more compassionate because you are not reacting from your own insecurity. You can hold space for someone else's emotions without being consumed by them. You become a calm presence instead of a sponge for other people's turbulence. To reclaim your peace, you must establish emotional boundaries. You need to learn when to offer support and when to step back. You must recognize the difference between being empathetic and being entangled. When you stop making others responsible for your joy and stop making yourself responsible for their pain, you finally begin to taste true freedom. This is not emotional detachment. It is emotional intelligence. It is living with presence rather than with pressure. So stop outsourcing your inner state. Your peace is not a community project that requires everyone's participation. It is your own quiet sanctuary, and only you hold the key. Let others feel what they feel, say what they say, do what they do. Your task is to remain rooted, aware, and in tune with your own truth. From that space, life becomes less about reaction and more about conscious response. And in that stillness, you will discover that peace was never out there. It was always waiting inside you. People's reactions are not your responsibility. You may speak with the purest intent, offer your support with an open heart, and act from a place of complete honesty. Yet others might still misunderstand you, reject you, or react negatively. This is the nature of human interaction. Each person sees the world not as it is, but as they are. Their perceptions are filtered through their past experiences, their current emotions, and their personal insecurities. No matter how carefully you choose your words or how gently you offer your presence, there will always be someone who takes it the wrong way. We often mistakenly believe that we are responsible for how others feel about our words or actions. This is an impossible burden to carry. If you bend yourself in one direction to avoid offending someone, you might simultaneously upset someone else. If you speak honestly to please one person, another may feel hurt by that same truth. You can spend your entire life trying to mold yourself to avoid conflict, but you will eventually realize that people will react however they want, no matter how hard you try to control it. Releasing this burden is a powerful shift. When you stop holding yourself accountable for every emotional ripple in others, you reclaim your peace. You are not a puppeteer pulling strings to keep everyone satisfied. You are a conscious being making decisions based on your understanding, your values, and your awareness. The outcomes are not yours to manipulate, they belong to the other person. Whether they accept, reject, praise, or criticize, it reflects more about their inner world than about your worth or intention. This does not mean you become careless or dismissive. It means you become deeply responsible for your part and completely free from the need to control the rest. You check your own heart, your motives, your clarity. You ensure you are not acting from ego or from malice. But once your side is clean, you let go. You don't chase after someone's approval, nor do you crumble under their disapproval. You remain rooted in your own center, allowing others the dignity of their own journey. Many people feel drained because they carry the weight of reactions they were never meant to hold. They walk on eggshells, always anxious about how their words will be received. This fear keeps them small, hesitant, and disconnected from their true expression. But life is too short to constantly edit yourself in fear of how others might respond. If your truth is gentle and sincere, then let it be. If your actions are kind and thoughtful, then stand by them. The rest is not in your hands. When you accept that reactions are not your responsibility, you begin to experience a lightness within. You speak more freely, act more authentically, and connect more honestly. You start choosing words not to manipulate an outcome, but to express yourself clearly. You stop walking around with 1,000 unspoken thoughts, fearing someone's disapproval. And in this freedom, you build stronger connections, ones based on truth, not performance. So let people react, let them misunderstand, let them take their time to process what you said or did. That is their path, and it may have nothing to do with your intention. Your task is not to micromanage how the world receives you. Your task is to live and speak from a space of clarity, compassion, and presence. And when you do that, you will no longer be exhausted by the weight of reactions, because you will know what is yours to carry and what never was. Emotional boundaries are not a sign of selfishness. They are a mark of wisdom. We are taught to be available, to always show up, to give endlessly. But we are rarely taught to pause and ask ourselves at what cost. When you constantly put everyone else's needs before your own, you start to feel stretched, drained, and lost. Being there for others is noble, but when it comes at the price of your own mental and emotional balance, it turns into self-neglect. There is no virtue in breaking yourself just to keep others whole. Many people confuse boundaries with rejection. They assume that saying no or stepping back means you don't care, but this is not true. Boundaries are not walls. They are filters. They don't push people away. They protect what matters within. You can love someone deeply and still not be available for them at all hours. You can support a friend and still say, "Not right now, I need to rest." Real care includes self-care. Without that balance, your compassion turns into resentment and your giving becomes forced. You are not designed to carry every emotion, solve every problem, or be present for every crisis. Your energy is not unlimited. When you say yes to everything and everyone, you begin to betray your own needs. Eventually, your body feels it, your mood reflects it, and your clarity disappears. You're tired, but you keep showing up. You're overwhelmed, but you keep nodding. This is not kindness, this is self-erasure, and no one truly benefits from a version of you that's only running on fumes. There is power in recognizing when to engage and when to step back. Just as your phone needs to recharge, so does your mind and heart. And just like no one can charge your phone for you if you don't plug it in, No one can protect your peace if you don't draw the line. Setting boundaries is not about shutting people out. It's about inviting the right energy in. It's about choosing where your presence is meaningful instead of being everywhere and feeling nothing. Often the guilt of setting boundaries comes from the fear of being misunderstood. You worry they will think you're selfish, distant, or uncaring. But if someone misinterprets your need for space as rejection, it says more about their own wounds than your intentions. You are not responsible for how others respond to your boundaries. You are only responsible for expressing them with calm and clarity. Those who value your presence will understand. Those who don't were only interested in your availability, not your well-being. The more you honor your boundaries, the more peaceful you become. You stop rushing, stop overcommitting, and stop feeling torn in different directions. You start choosing from a place of alignment. You learn to say no with grace and yes with presence. You stop showing up out of obligation and start showing up out of genuine care. And that changes everything. Not just for you, but for everyone around you. Because a well-rested, clear-minded, emotionally balanced person is a true gift. So give yourself permission to rest, to say no, to step away without guilt. You do not have to earn your worth through exhaustion. Your value does not increase because you are always available. Protect your energy like it's sacred, because it is. When you live from that awareness, your giving becomes purer, your relationships become healthier, and your life begins to feel like yours again. Silence is often misunderstood in today's world. People believe that if you are silent, you are weak or uncertain. But silence, when chosen consciously, is one of the most powerful tools you possess. It's not the silence of fear or suppression. It's the silence of clarity and strength. When you stop reacting to everything around you, you create a space between stimulus and response. And in that space, you find your power. You begin to realize that not every comment deserves a reply, not every misunderstanding needs a defense, and not every battle is yours to fight. Many people drain their energy trying to constantly explain themselves. They want to be understood, to be seen clearly, to correct every wrong assumption others make about them. But the truth is, no matter how clearly you speak, someone will still twist your words. No matter how much you try to clarify your intentions, someone will still judge you through the lens of their own bias. When you chase understanding from people who are committed to misunderstanding you, you lose yourself in the process. There is deep peace in letting go of the need to be right in everyone's eyes. Sometimes the best response is no response. Not out of arrogance, but out of wisdom. Silence protects your energy. It gives you time to reflect instead of react. It allows you to choose whether something even deserves your attention. When you stop feeding every conflict with your words, you starve it of the energy it needs to survive. What is not fed cannot grow. We often confuse silence with passivity, but silence can be deeply active. It's a space where your awareness sharpens, your emotions settle, and your perspective deepens. While others are busy arguing and justifying, the silent person is watching, learning, and understanding more than anyone in the room. In silence, you connect with your inner voice. You begin to hear your own truth more clearly, unclouded by noise or opinion. And from that place, your next move becomes more intentional. Silence also teaches you detachment. You begin to see how temporary most disturbances are. Someone's anger, someone's insult, someone's ignorance, these things rise and fall like waves. If you meet them with equal intensity, you become part of the storm. But if you remain still like the ocean's depth, the waves pass over without disturbing your core. This doesn't mean you never speak. It means you speak when your words will uplift, not when they will escalate. There is also a sacredness to your inner world. Not everything needs to be shared or proven. Keeping some things to yourself is not secrecy. It's respect for the energy you've cultivated. Silence helps you build that space within where you are not constantly reacting, defending, or proving. And from that space, your presence alone begins to speak louder than words. People feel it in your calm, in your restraint, in your depth. That is true influence, not loud, but lasting. So choose silence not because you are defeated, but because you are in control. Choose it not because you don't know what to say, but because you don't need to say everything. Let your silence become your strength, your protection, and your wisdom. Let it guide you through chaos without becoming chaotic. In a world full of noise, your silence will not only stand out, it will speak volumes. Approval is something we are taught to seek from a very young age. As children, we are praised when we do something considered right and frowned upon when we do something that doesn't fit the mold. Slowly, without realizing it, we begin to associate our worth with how others react to us. We start craving that nod, that applause, that validation. It becomes a habit so deeply rooted that even as adults we keep performing, adjusting and reshaping ourselves just to hear someone say, "Well done," or "You're good enough." This endless pursuit becomes the silent foundation of much of our anxiety and confusion. When you live for approval, you begin to lose connection with your own voice. You start choosing your words, not because they are true to you, but because you think they will be accepted. You begin acting not from authenticity, but out of fear. Fear of being judged, of being disliked, of being excluded. Over time, this builds a false version of you that feels safer but emptier. You walk through life wearing masks for different people, not realizing that the real you is slowly fading into the background. And the more you seek approval, the more fragile you become. The trap of approval is that it always demands more. One compliment feels good, but then you want another. One success brings praise, but then you feel pressure to outperform yourself again. It never ends. The high of being liked is temporary, and when it fades, you are left needing it again. You become a prisoner in a cage made of other people's opinions, and this cage doesn't need to be forced upon you. You build it yourself, one moment of self-denial at a time. It is subtle, invisible, but extremely powerful in how it limits your life. Freedom begins when you stop living for applause. When you no longer measure your day by how many likes you got or how many people agreed with your choices, you begin to breathe again. You begin to explore who you truly are beneath the layers of performance. You realize that real self-worth doesn't scream for attention. It exists quietly, steadily from within. You don't need to convince anyone. You don't need to be understood by everyone. You just need to be honest with yourself. Letting go of the need for approval doesn't mean you stop caring about people. It simply means you stop allowing their opinion to define you. You can still listen, still be respectful, still learn from others, but your sense of self no longer depends on their praise or their permission. This shift brings a new level of confidence, not loud or aggressive, but grounded. You become more at ease in your skin. You stop overthinking every word and move. You simply show up as you are, and that becomes enough. There will always be someone who doesn't like you, no matter what you do. Even the kindest, most genuine person is disliked by someone. Trying to win universal approval is not only impossible, but it's also pointless. What's more meaningful is becoming someone who can stand alone in truth when needed, who can walk away from applause when it compromises integrity, and who can find peace without having to be seen. This is not arrogance, this is inner maturity. When you release yourself from the need for approval, you reclaim your life. You begin to act not out of fear or performance, but from clarity. You discover joy in doing what feels aligned rather than what feels accepted. You are no longer swayed by every opinion or judgment that comes your way. Instead of dancing to a tune someone else chose for you, you begin to create your own rhythm. And in that rhythm, you find freedom, not the freedom that shouts for attention, but the quiet freedom of finally being at home in yourself. Care, but don't carry. That is a truth most people only learn after being exhausted by the weight of other people's problems. We confuse love with burden and empathy with emotional sacrifice. When someone we care about is in pain, our natural instinct is to jump in and take on that pain as if doing so will make it disappear. But in reality, when you carry what is not yours, you not only drain yourself, but you also take away the other person's opportunity to grow through their own experience. There is a difference between helping someone and becoming consumed by their struggle. Being there for someone does not mean you have to suffer with them. Presence is powerful, but presence does not require self-destruction. You can sit beside someone in silence. You can listen deeply. You can offer your love. But none of that means you must take their sorrow into your own body. Too often we absorb the emotions of others, thinking it's compassion, but it is actually emotional entanglement. Compassion uplifts, entanglement drains. You must learn the art of staying rooted in yourself while being present for others. Many people find themselves overwhelmed, not by their own lives, but by the emotional weight they've taken on from friends, family, partners, and even strangers. Slowly, without realizing it, they begin to carry everyone's fears, disappointments, and grief, as if it's their responsibility to fix it all. But you are not here to save everyone. You are here to be a mirror, a light, a presence. If you drown in someone else's storm, you lose your ability to guide them to shore. You cannot offer clarity if you are caught in the same confusion. When you carry someone else's pain as your own, you begin to blur the lines of responsibility. You think you're helping, but you may be enabling. You think you're rescuing, but you might be interrupting a necessary process. Sometimes people need to sit with their discomfort to learn, to heal, to rise on their own. If you interfere too soon, you may unintentionally delay their growth. Supporting someone doesn't always mean softening the blow. Sometimes it means holding space and trusting in their strength. There is a great difference between sharing and absorbing. Sharing creates connection. It builds understanding, and it honors the boundaries of both people. Absorbing, on the other hand, leads to imbalance. It leaves one person heavier and the other dependent. Emotional health requires that we care with an open heart, but protect our own center. Just as you wouldn't hand someone a piece of your oxygen mask on a crashing plane, you shouldn't give away your mental and emotional stability in the name of love. You are not unkind for choosing not to carry another's emotional baggage. In fact, you are wise. When you are strong and centered, you offer a stable presence that others can lean on. But if you are constantly weighed down, constantly tired, constantly filled with other people's noise, you become less effective, less grounded, and less alive. Your peace is not selfish, it is service. A peaceful person has more to offer than one who is broken by burdens they were never meant to bear. So love deeply, but do not lose yourself. Offer your hand, but not your soul. Be a support, not a sponge. When you care without carrying, you stay present without drowning. You offer light without being burned. And in doing so, you honor not only the people around you, but also your own sacred space. Let your love be strong and steady, not exhausting and endless. Only then can it truly serve. Energy flows where attention goes. Every moment you spend thinking, worrying, or engaging with something that holds no real value is a moment of your life slipping away without purpose. We live in a world full of distractions, endless opinions, arguments, news, notifications, and noise. Most of it has nothing to do with your growth, your peace, or your purpose, yet it still consumes your time, your mental space, and your emotional strength. You might not notice the cost at first, but over time your energy gets scattered and you begin to feel exhausted without even knowing why. Your attention is your most powerful currency. Where you place it determines the quality of your experience. If you give your attention to chaos, you will feel chaotic. If you give your attention to growth, you will begin to evolve. But if your attention is constantly pulled in 100 directions, you will never feel present, no matter how much you accomplish. Many people are not tired because of how much they're doing. They are tired because of how much meaningless noise they are mentally holding on to. It's not action that drains you, it's divided focus. We often believe we must stay informed, involved, and engaged with everything happening around us. But the truth is, your mind was not built to process a flood of constant stimulation. It was designed to focus, to observe, to respond consciously. When you give your attention to things that don't uplift you, inspire you, or align with your deeper purpose, you are watering weeds instead of flowers. You are feeding distractions while your inner clarity slowly starves. It is not about withdrawing from life. It is about being selective. Just as you don't eat everything that's placed in front of you, you shouldn't consume every piece of information, opinion, or drama that enters your space. Protect your attention as you would protect your most valuable possession, because in many ways it is. What you focus on shapes what you become. Your thoughts, your emotions, your beliefs, they all rise from what you continuously give your attention to. Think of your attention like sunlight. Wherever it lands, something begins to grow. If it lands on resentment, resentment grows. If it lands on gratitude, gratitude grows. If it lands on fear, fear grows. But if you learn to direct it toward your peace, your purpose, and your inner stillness, you create a space for clarity and strength to emerge. And from that space, you begin to live not reactively, but intentionally. You begin to choose how you show up rather than just getting dragged along by what shows up. The most powerful people are not those who try to do everything. They are the ones who know where not to look, what not to feed, what not to respond to. They understand that their energy is limited and they use it wisely. They let go of unnecessary mental noise so they can hear their own truth more clearly. They are not in a rush to be everywhere and do everything. They are rooted, present, and focused. And because of that, their actions have more depth and impact. So ask yourself daily, where is your attention going? Is it building you or breaking you? Is it lifting you or draining you? Your life will always reflect the direction of your focus. If you want to change your experience, change where your energy flows. Bring it back to your breath, your body, your moment. Let it rest in your presence instead of your past. The more you reclaim your attention, the more alive you become, and in that awareness, you begin to truly live. Letting go is one of the hardest things to do because it feels like giving up. It feels like you are turning your back on something or someone you once deeply cared about. But letting go is not about indifference. It is not about becoming cold or disconnected. Letting go, when done consciously, comes from wisdom. It is the understanding that not everything is meant to be fixed, held on to, or figured out. Sometimes letting go is the only act left that honors your peace, your clarity, and your growth. When you hold on too tightly to people, outcomes, or situations, you create tension within yourself. You try to force life to move according to your plan, even when life is clearly moving in another direction. This resistance creates suffering. You overthink, you overanalyze, and you exhaust yourself emotionally. You replay conversations, you imagine scenarios, and you cling to what used to be or what could have been. But life does not work through clinging. It moves through flow. The more you try to control, the more you distance yourself from peace. Letting go does not mean you stop caring. In fact, It often means you care deeply, but have realized that care alone cannot change the situation. It means you have accepted that your energy is better used elsewhere, on what can be influenced rather than what cannot. You let go because holding on has started to hurt more than help. You let go not out of bitterness, but because you finally see things clearly. Some people are not meant to stay, some problems are not yours to solve, and some chapters are not meant to be rewritten. There is freedom in surrender, not the surrender of defeat, but the surrender of acceptance. You stop fighting with reality. You stop trying to force something to be what it's not. You stop draining yourself in the name of control. When you truly let go, something inside you softens. The tension in your chest begins to ease. The thoughts in your mind begin to quiet, and the heavy emotional weight starts to lift. You realize that you don't need to carry everything. Some things are allowed to fall away. Often the fear behind letting go is the fear of emptiness. You wonder what will be left if you release what you've held on to for so long. But that space is not emptiness. It is openness. It is the beginning of renewal. It is where new experiences, people, and insights can enter. You cannot receive what is next if your hands are still full of what has passed. Life moves forward. And when you learn to move with it rather than resist it, you become more in tune with your true rhythm. Letting go also means trusting life. Trusting that there is something wiser than your limited perspective. Trusting that even the painful experiences are shaping you in some unseen way. Trusting that endings are not failures but transitions. You may not understand everything now, but letting go is your way of making space for that understanding to arrive later. You don't have to have all the answers before you release the weight. Sometimes the release is what brings the answers. So when the time comes to let go, do it gently. Don't make it harsh or dramatic. Don't wait until the pain breaks you. Let go the way leaves fall from trees, quietly, naturally, and without resistance. Let go with love, with respect for what it meant, and with hope for what's to come. In that release, you do not lose. You return to yourself, and from that place of inner stillness, you find a deeper peace that was waiting all along. So stop draining yourself in the name of care. The world doesn't need you burned out and resentful. It needs you grounded, clear, and alive. When you care from your center, not from your chaos, you don't just help others, you uplift the world around you. Start from yourself, not from selfishness, but from self-awareness, and from there, you'll realize caring less isn't cold. It's wise.